Dr. Martin and Dr. Lookabaugh, thanks for joining us. It's always a joy to speak to the both of you. The first question is a simple yet broad one, and we'll ask it to each of you. First, Dr. Martin, what does plant health mean to you, and how would you describe it to our listeners?
To me, I've always thought of plant health in the broad sense, probably just from my training, in plant science, and also from years of diagnosing and troubleshooting problems on golf courses. So I think of it as, what affects plants, plant physiology. I mean, plants need light, water, a decent environment to grow and survive in. And so I kind of think about it that way to begin with, but I know for this discussion we're talking about products that affect plant health, and you can narrow it even down from there because that could include nutrients, fertilizers and things like that. Those are plant health products in the broad sense. Narrowing it down, I think, focuses a little more on stress, and certainly golf turf. I've always considered it a risky plant growth system, because particularly putting greens that are constructed on sand-based root zones. So by design, they're poorly drained. Because of being sand-based, they don't hold nutrients very well. Then you have just the game of golf with all the different slopes and different drainage patterns and things like that all have an influence on the plant health and the susceptibility to disease. It's a risky system, and I think anything that we do to ameliorate that, to improve the plant health growth system is a benefit, and that includes fungicides and products that can help with some of that intrinsic stress. I don't mean to say intrinsic, one of the fungicide, but the stress that is in the system. If that's clear, I don't know.
That is perfectly clear. And Dr. Lookabaugh will ask you the same question. What does plant health mean to you, and what does it mean to the BASF team?
Like Bruce said, golf course turf is usually stressed to the max. We cut it low. We hit it with a lot of PGRs and herbicides. We punch holes in it. You've got heavy foot traffic from, year-long play. You have your NASCAR golf cart drivers that drive like maniacs all over the fairways. And then we even stress the water requirements, and that's so the ball will keep rolling fast. And so all of these things contribute to poor turf quality. So to me, when I think of plant health, I'm really thinking about crop resilience and that turf's ability to respond to all those stresses on a golf course. Because when you have healthy and robust root systems, that's going to allow your plants to better respond to heat and drought stress. If you have vigorous plants that are actively growing, they're going to recover faster from injury. Because ultimately, stress turf is weak turf. Weak turf is more susceptible to pests and diseases, like Bruce said. And when we end up with those diseases, we tend to just start throwing fungicides around left and right and expecting some sort of quick fix, when in reality, we really need to look at the bigger picture about plant health and figure out how we can reduce some of those stress points and improve the overall turf quality. And then sometimes it can take time. It can take quite a while. It could take years to really change the foundation and the reliance that we have on reactive spraying. And ultimately, we want to keep the turf happy and healthy all year so that we can more easily manage it when you have times that are a little tougher, when you have the stress or diseases that come in. Because if you have just higher quality plants, all of your other things that you do throughout the year are going to be a little bit easier, and sometimes you'll have to have less inputs later because your turf is just healthier.
You have me stressed out now thinking about all the things our readers and listeners do to turf, and that NASCAR reference really has me stressed out about what we do to. This is for either of you. Are there any misconceptions with the term plant health? And if so, what can be done to clarify those misconceptions?
I'm sure there are misconceptions, and it kind of depends on probably how knowledgeable someone is entering into the conversation about it. Again, it can be thought of in a broad sense, like I was describing, but it can also be narrowed down to particular products and how they influence plant physiology, which is really what we're talking about. So I think if the people in the conversation about plant health would define what they're really interested in and talking about it, then you can have an intelligent conversation about it and avoid confusion.
For me, plant health means something different to everyone, and I think that that's okay too, because ultimately we want superintendents to see the value in whatever the product is that they're paying for and applying. And so sometimes that value may be really subtle, those benefits may be really subtle, and then sometimes they can smack you in the face and they're real obvious. So like Bruce said, defining what plant health means to each superintendent can help us navigate through the sea of products that are available and pick the right ones that are going to work for their courses, for their needs, for their turf type, whatever it may be.
Yeah, Dr. Lookabaugh, speaking of products, there are a lot of products in the market today that promote plant health benefits. What makes BASF's Intrinsic brand fungicides different from the rest?
So, every time we go to a conference or trade show, I see new products promoting plant health, and it ranges from fungicides to fertilizers, and we're even starting to see more microbial-based products entering the turf market. And the BASF Intrinsic line of fungicides are really first and foremost fungicides, and we recommend them to protect turf against diseases. And so every product in that Intrinsic line contains pyraclostrobin as the active ingredient, or one of the active ingredients in terms of some of the combo products. In addition to just being a powerful broad-spectrum fungicide in its own right, pyraclostrobin is also affecting plant metabolism in a positive way. And so that's where those plant health benefits that we talk about come into play. And, I don't want to sit here on this podcast and go into the whole backstory and all the research that they did, figure out, these plant health benefits and how they discovered that we had these benefits. Long story short is that when you apply these fungicides, you're getting added benefits in terms of faster rooting, more robust root systems, faster recovery from aerification, and even crop resilience during heat, drought, and cold stresses. And the difference between the Intrinsic brand fungicides and some of the other plant health promoting products on the market is that the plant health benefits that we get with Intrinsic are all coming from the pyraclostrobin molecule itself. And so it's not something we add to the tank. It's not a colorant. It's not an additive. It's the actual fungicide that's giving those benefits. And so most of the other products in this category either don't bring direct fungicidal properties at all, or they offer maybe suppression of a few diseases and are really meant to supplement a program. So something you can run in the background if you want a color boost or you want a little added protection. Whereas products like Insignia, Lexicon, Navicon, these products are strong enough and they're broad spectrum enough that they can carry your fungicide program and really create a foundation for not only the disease control aspect, but also improved plant health and quality benefits all year long.
Dr. Martin, how far has the industry come with ensuring proper plant health over the years, and what do you attribute some of the improvements you've seen to?
Well, I guess I go back a long way, almost to, I guess my career started as a student not long after the first penetrant fungicides were developed, things like Benamil, the benzimidazoles. These were the first fungicides that actually would penetrate into the plant, and that was an advantage, because some of them, like Benamil, were xylem mobile. They would move in the plant, and that's when we actually started to see that fungicides themselves could have physiological effects on plants. So it turns out that some of those penetrants do have physiological effects. They can be positive, they can be negative in some cases. The old school DMI fungicides cause growth regulation that in a field crop is no big deal, but in turf that's cut low causes, sometimes promotes algae bloom and thinning of the turf canopy and things like that. So that it's kind of been interesting, very interesting to watch the development of fungicides through the years and see the continuous improvement. A good example is the recent introduction of Maxtima, a DMI fungicide that does not growth regulate at all. And so that's a big benefit in golf turf. So we've seen that, and then when the QOI fungicides began to be developed, we were also noticing physiological effects, particularly with Insignia. Insignia, I guess my first experience with Insignia that got our attention in a big way was when rapid blight was affecting overseedings in the Carolinas and all across the U.S. and California. We didn't even know what the causal agent was at the time, but we were testing fungicides, and we found that Insignia paraclostrobin, actually before it was named Insignia, was suppressing the disease rather phenomenally, while the other QOI fungicides either had very little effect or no effect. And at that time, I was thinking there has to be some kind of a secondary mode of action that is helping Insignia do this, while the related fungicides that have the same fungicidal mode of action are not working for this disease. Then later, soon after that, Pythium root rot, Pythium root dysfunction kind of hit the news in the Carolinas, and it turned out that paraclostrobin among the QOIs was the best fungicide for managing Pythium root dysfunction. So we began putting it in disease control programs for bentgrass and comparing it to other QOI fungicides. Consistently, we would get better turf quality over a season with only 2 sprays in the summer in a well-designed program, and that was really impressive to see that. In recent years now, with the introduction of Maxtima and then the mixtures like Navicon, we've seen the same benefits. In my program, we shifted to Bermuda grass starting in the late 90s and certainly through the 2000s with the ultra dwarfs, and began to develop programs for diseases like spring dead spot and take all root rot, and shifted our focus more to the fall of the year in the transition zone where I live and work. And we would see great benefits, particularly at spring green up. We could get good disease control with many different products, but then when we would see how the grass came out of dormancy in the spring, consistently those that had paraclostrobin as a component would come out vigorously out of dormancy. So it's been interesting, and Emma mentioned some of the other products, that some are fertilizers, some are microbial. All of that's good if those benefits are real, that they really translate to something that's a benefit in the field and they're affordable, then I'm all for that. So it's been quite interesting.
Dr. Lookabaugh, where should a superintendent begin when establishing a program to boost plant health, and when should Intrinsic brand fungicides come into play?
So like we mentioned earlier, plant health is more than just disease control. So you want to start by taking a big picture view of your course throughout the year. So figure out your problem areas. Do you have poorly drained sites? Do you have shady areas, high traffic areas, all those droughty places where maybe you have nematode pressure? These are going to be the areas that need more attention throughout the year. You also have to think about turf types that you're growing. So, and when that turf type is going to be the most stressed. So if you've got bent grass or poa greens, they're going to be the most stressed during the heat of the summer. If you've got Bermuda, it's going to be more stressed during the shoulder seasons because the days are getting shorter and that turf is slowing down. And so over the years, we've kind of built a foundation with what we call our holiday spray program. And really it's a simple starting point for building a plant health program as much as it is for building a disease control program, because the program takes into account when your turf is most likely to be under stress, and in turn, when you're going to have increased disease pressure. And conveniently enough, those tend to fall around some of the major holidays throughout the year. And so that's where the whole holiday thing came in the beginning. But to be honest, the holiday timings are a bit loose, but it helps drive the message in an easy way. So we position the Intrinsic brand fungicides ahead of those stress events so that we can maximize our preventive disease control and also the plant health benefits. So if we're looking at a holiday spray program or a starting program for a cool season turf, you're going to want to apply your Intrinsic brand fungicides starting around Memorial Day, and then you continue through Labor Day. So that's June, July, August, September. And so those applications are protecting the turf against summer stress and then diseases like dollar spot, brown patch, anthracnose, summer patch, all of your cool season diseases. When we talk about warm season turf, we shift the bulk of our applications to the shoulders. So apps in September, October, November, they protect against diseases like take-all root rot, spring dead spot, your leaf spot diseases, but they also boost that stress protection as your temperatures drop off and the Bermuda slows down. And so in areas where the Bermuda goes dormant, that last application in November kind of puts the turf to bed clean, we say, and then the program starts back again in March as that turf starts waking back up and coming out of dormancy. We also like to put an Intrinsic app in front of aerification, and so like I said, that's to aid in hold closure and recovery, but it's also to help prevent fairy ring pop-ups that tend to, blow up right around the time you aerify. And then we do another app sort of late summer, and that jumpstarts our fall take-all program, but it also gives a little added tropical storm protection. So really, the program gives you a lot of flexibility. So you can do 3 apps, you can do 6 apps, depending on what your needs are. And then you just build the rest of your program around those foundational applications. And so it's just an easy starting point. So if you're, looking for somewhere to start or to build a foundation, maybe pick those key timings and then build it and add in the rest as you need it.
Dr. Martin, you've done a lot of fungicide research over the years. Is there anything you want to add to what Dr. Lookabaugh said about how and where Intrinsic brand fungicides fit into warm and cool season disease control programs?
Oh, she did a really good job of describing, how to use the products. I would just make the point that they're fungicides first and foremost, and they're really good fungicides. So target those against the diseases that, a person has a problem with, So that's basically where you start in developing a program, is to understand what diseases are occurring on your golf course and which ones are most important. A lot of the time, those are the root diseases where timing is really important, something like summer patch. We have good soil temperature target to look at the first applications for preventing summer patch. And in warm season turf, we have good soil temperature targets for spring dead spot and for some new information actually from NC State on take-all root rot that can help with refining the timing of fungicides for control of the root diseases. So that's the kind of thing, as Emma said, it conveniently matches to some degree their holiday spray program. But superintendents need to pay really close attention to those soil temp targets as they develop their programs.
Dr. Lookabaugh, what makes the Intrinsic brand fungicides quality options for superintendents looking to elevate their golf courses in 2023?
So as you know, we've got quite a few products in the Intrinsic portfolio, and sometimes it gets a little confusing figuring out which one to use where. So we've got Insignia, Lexicon, Navicon, Honor, and even Pillar G that kind of fall into that Intrinsic portfolio. All of these products are solid, broad-spectrum fungicides, And the range of products here gives you a lot of flexibility to select the options that are going to work not only for your budget, but also the needs at your course, like Bruce said. And one thing that I love about the intrinsic fungicides is their versatility. So whether we're talking fairy ring, dollar spot, take all, spring dead spot, anthracnose, summer patch, they can serve as the backbone of any of those programs. Kind of what we like to say is, you pick your favorite intrinsic foundation, and then you rotate in the other chemistry as you need it. So if you love Lexicon, you can partner that with Maxima. If you love Navicon, you can partner it with Exemplar. And then you can build in, your contact fungicides, things like Incardis or Mancozeb or Fluazinam for added dollar spot, leaf spot, algae protection. So you take these other products that are maybe, 10, 14-day products, and you build them into your foundation, and that gives you that well-rounded program that you can rely on, that gives you peace of mind. So I kind of think that's how Intrinsic fits. It's the backbone, and then you pick the one you like to use, and then you figure out the rest of the apps around those products.
Last thing here, and Dr. Martin, the podcast airwaves, or whatever I guess we call them in the podcasting world, are all yours. Any guidance and wisdom you want to give to superintendents as they begin their 2023 preparations?
I don't know about wisdom, Guy.
How about guidance then?
The guidance part, maybe we've said it through the podcast, but have a plan. Be prepared. I think that's one good thing that's come out of the early order programs. It sort of forces superintendents to come up with a plan when they're pre-ordering their products, and but have a plan, but understand that a program is really not a recipe. It shouldn't be thought of it that way. It's a guideline. And be prepared to change if circumstances throw you a curveball. And, that's not unusual for a storm to come in and change things, and you need to add a pitching product really quick and things like that. I think it's a great thing to have a plan. As we did all of our program work, particularly in bentgrass, it was really striking to see how good programs actually carried over beyond a year. In other words, if you had a good program the summer before and you let disease come in without spraying a year later, you could still pick out where you had a good program, because disease either wouldn't come in or it would be delayed there. So the consequences of having a really good program are really profound, more profound than most people realize. I would leave it at that. Have a good plan, but be prepared to change if you have to.
We learned a lot from this conversation. It's always a joy to speak to both of you, and thanks for what you two do to help so many of our readers and listeners and followers, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Okay, guys, thanks.
Thanks.